All right, everybody, welcome to the latest episode of In the Flat Podcast. I'm your host, Tony Kill, joined again this week by Jess Saban and Jordan Schultz. So this week, we're going to go over a little bit of news. Not much happening out there, but we'll hit a couple of the bigger news items that are out there in the world. Then we're going to jump into our first talk about the NFL draft coming up. So we're going to do a quick little mock draft before, the big push of free agency really begins, and kind of talk about where we think teams should go with some of the college players, really focus on, based on what we saw in college, who we think is going to have the biggest impact, or who would be the best fit for which team. So before we jump into that, though, let's jump into news. So first up, the AAC has released their schedule, which now includes a 14-team league after they lost Cincinnati, Houston, and Central Florida to the Big 12. This year they added Charlotte, FAU, North Texas, Rice, UAB, UTSA from Conference USA. And also, so in the last 7 or 9 years, the Group of Five New Year's Six Bowl has been awarded to the AAC. Do we think that continues with this new grouping? What do you think, Jordan?
I think so. I think why change it? I think it should be, especially this, these teams have shown that they're pretty good and have competed. I mean, UTSA has been a force to be reckoned with. I think it does hurt losing those, probably three of the top teams in that conference to the Big 12. It really doesn't help. But I definitely think we'll see it stay like that and continue to be putting one of those teams in the into the New Year's Six and continue that. It might change. Another conference might pull ahead in the Group of Fives, but as of right now, I still see them being that conference to bring someone there.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think I was wondering, the only team I thought of that might have a good chance next year is Tulane. Is Tulane in the AAC? I think they are, right?
Yep. They win it this year.
Yep. And so, I think that will continue. I think Tulane's going to have a good season, and those teams are just going to kind of pick up the slack of those other groups. So I don't think there's never really big, strong conference, and then there's Conference USA up there, but a lot of those teams are moving up. The AAC is almost like a minor league of sorts for Power Five, and then but it's kind of like a feeder system. All other conferences are feeder systems to that, especially now with the transfer portal. So I agree with you. I don't foresee that changing anytime soon there. So but something we can keep an eye on, continue to watch that. Talk about some other news here. Penn State plans to renovate Beaver Stadium rather than building a brand new facility. I think there were some talks about building a brand new stadium, but they decided to renovate. I think with some of these older stadiums that have been around forever, it's really hard to create a new stadium, and you kind of lose its luster and its history. But do you think, Jess, what do you think? You think this is the right call for some of these older stadiums? Would you kind of renovate, or would you go modern age kind of thing here? I know it's a little different in college and NFL, but what do you think?
So many of these college stadiums have a lot of history. It would also be, as we've seen with NFL teams who want a new stadium, it's incredibly expensive. If you can successfully renovate, I'd say that's probably the better option. It won't be as expensive, and it could also offer some other opportunities for schools that don't have the funding of a Penn State for their football team and their stadiums. So I don't have any issue with it. I think it was the right choice, and we'll see how it still holds up in 5 years.
No, for sure. The only thing I say, I love we go to Notre Dame games. I love going to Notre Dame game, the history there. It would be nice to have some of those modern facilities added to that, but I would kind of hate that it would lose any of that history though. So it's kind of, you have to have that really fun balance, I think. All right, let's move on a bit here. Just some sad news to report. Not sure if you guys saw that, but UNLV football defensive lineman Ryan Keeler died at age 20. I believe he was, I want to say, teammates or friends with J.J. McCarthy. He almost went to some bigger schools until he settled on UNLV. So I don't know all the full details of what happened with him yet, but our thoughts and prayers definitely with his family and teammates out there. Hate to see that, especially at a young age like that. Moving on to Florida. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed a law to repeal the state's NIL restrictions. This will allow coaches to assist players in facilitating deals, but schools will still not be able to pay players directly. I hate this rule. Like, I don't think coaches should be involved in helping to facilitate deals at all. Isn't that just another way to pay? You're not paying them, but you're basically paying them by moving them to somewhere to get the money. I don't know. What do you think there, Jordan?
No, I'm with you on that. I think it's not going to change the schools paying them. Yeah, in words, the school still won't be able to pay them, but coaches shouldn't be involved with this. They have nothing really to do with these players' name, image, and likeness, and so it just seems like a way the coaches can make money now too. It's like now the coach can go to somewhere and be like, "I'll get you this kid to sign on if you give me some money." So I think it's going to hurt Florida in the long run, and I think it's really going to mess with NIL more than it already has.
Totally agree. All right, moving on. Ohio State has canceled its 2024-2025 games with Washington. The rumor is they're going to probably be out in the West Coast already with USC and UCLA joining, so they don't want to go out there twice one of those years, so they decided to cancel that series with Washington. And then the last bit of news here is Maryland is hiring former head coach of Arizona and Texas A&M, Kevin Sumlin, as its co-offensive coordinator and its tight ends coach. So that's a little bit of news there. Any thoughts on any of those items? Start you, Jess.
Nope, not really. I think it's interesting that Ohio State canceled their games with Washington, but I'm pretty sure that has more to do with the Big Ten, the Big Ten's, incoming additions to the conference. So I don't have many thoughts.
Gotcha. Any final thoughts for you, Jordan, before we move forward with the draft?
Not really. It just, Penn State, it's going to be faster for Penn State to renovate than build a whole new stadium. And like you said, it's the nostalgia. It's going to that stadium. It's experiencing Penn State and, all that. But Ohio State canceling, I get why. They're already going to be there, and I think they're trying to probably make more room for, now it's, 14 teams in the Big Ten. You kind of got to, and, USC, adding those bigger schools is really going to, you want to play those bigger schools. If Washington hasn't really been that school for the last couple of years, why you're going to have a better chance at making the college football playoffs, beating a USC, a better team that came out of the Pac-12.
Yep, totally agree. All right, that's it for the news. Again, it's a little light. There's some news of some new rules that are being discussed. We'll talk about that in the coming weeks as there's some more light shine on those. But for today, like I said, we're going to jump into a little bit of a mock draft to kind of talk through the first round of the upcoming NFL draft, talk about the players that are we feel like should be drafted at first round. We saw all these players. We discussed all these players the last couple of years on this podcast, so we feel like we can highlight who we feel like is going to be a good candidate to really break out and have a good NFL career, who we want to stay away from. So let's go ahead and share it. For today, we are going to be using PFF to do the mock draft here, so very good site if you haven't used it yet, if you wanted to kind of review and play around with the upcoming draft, who's available, what your team's needs are, things of that nature. It's a really good website that we definitely highly recommend. We're not getting paid by them, but if they want to pay us, let us know, guys. All right. So let's kick this off here. So I will kick us off first here with the Chicago Bears, my beloved Chicago Bears, as they're the team that I do follow. Now, we're not going to do any trades in this mock draft. Just for, we don't know exactly who's going to trade what. It'd be really hard to kind of predict that. So we're just going to keep it as is if there was no trades in the first round. But if I were the Bears, I would trade this pick, and I would try to trade to the Colts to get that fourth pick of the draft. I would do that just because I think you get what you need from the defensive perspective there, and you can get some extra draft picks at the same time. Because really, we're not picking a quarterback first. Even though I saw some crazy rumors about trading Justin Fields, we're not doing that. So I would definitely trade it if I can. But if we're going to stay here, I think it's very easy who I would go with. I saw a lot of reports of, Bears with Jalen Carter, which I think Jalen Carter is a great player. I personally would go with Will Anderson in this first pick. I love the pass rushing ability he has, 6'4", 240 out of Alabama. Dominant year in 2022, 10 sacks, 17 tackles for loss, 51 total tackles. He, was a Heisman candidate the last couple of years. There was times I think he wasn't as focused as I would like him to be. So he saw his production drop a little bit last year because of that. But when he was flashing and he was motivated, I think the best player in college football. So with that being said, I am picking him as my number one pick there.
Well, with Will Anderson going number one.
All right.
That
so
leaves,
on the clock is Houston. So go ahead, Jess.
With Will Anderson off the board, I think this is pretty easy. You've got Bryce Young. He's pretty much the consensus number one quarterback. A bit undersized, coming in at around 6 feet, 190 pounds. It's not ideal size for an NFL quarterback, but he has that it factor. He's clutch. He can maneuver around inside the pocket. This year, he completed about 64.5% of his passes, had a bit over 3,000 yards, a 32-5 touchdown interception ratio. He had a passer rating of about 115. That's really good stuff, and most people would consider this Alabama team to certainly not be one of their best in recent years. They didn't exactly have a ton of weapons outside of, I believe it's Jahmyr Gibbs at running back. Offensive line, not the best Nick Saban offensive line, so I'm going with Bryce Young there at number 2 to the Texans.
Now, a question for you, because as I looked at the quarterbacks, I really would have a trouble going between Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud. I just feel like Bryce Young just could do more. But I think to your point, he lost a lot of talent from the year before, and that's why his production kind of went off. So, I kind of see what your point. He's a good leader of a team, and I think he's probably what Houston needs. So let's go ahead and put him there. All right, so over to Jordan now. You have the Arizona Cardinals on the board. They of course need some offensive line players, some defensive line, cornerback. You can go anywhere you want with this. Where are you going, sir?
So, we all know that their star, defensive lineman, J.J. Watt, retired. So I definitely see Arizona just picking up another defensive lineman and bringing them in. And so I'm going to pick Trey Wilson from Texas Tech.
Tyree Wilson?
Not Tyree Wilson. He's probably the next.
You're going to pick him over Jalen Carter. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yes. He's probably the best.
That.
Oh, well, you're wrong. Outside of Will Anderson, he's the second best edge rusher. So I think he's going to fit in well, and no one's going to be able to take that J.J. Watt role ever. Probably, in our lifetime, never. But I think he can, at least contribute enough and bring back some of that defensive line strength that they had. So, yeah.
No, I think it's a good pick. I think I think he has some good size, some good power, has a really good first step. I think he can really get to the quarterback quite a bit there. I think he might need a little bit of development, so he might not have an instant impact. But I think he's someone that can develop into one of the better defensive players in the league. So, good pick there. So I'm going to put him on the board for you there. All right. So number 4 on the board, obviously, is the Colts. They need offensive lineman and a quarterback. I will tell you right now, I'm not taking Will Levis. I don't think he should be in the first round, but I don't know why he's here at number 4, and he's ranked highly in all the mock drafts out there, but that's just my personal opinion. Obviously, if he was here, I probably would have took Bryce Young, but if he's not being here, CJ Stroud's right here. I do feel like he's the best quarterback currently available in the draft. I feel like he did a lot of good things at Ohio State. I am a little worried. They don't have a lot of talent, and the offensive line needs to be rebuilt a little bit. So I'm a little worried about that because he doesn't like someone that likes to run a lot. But I think out of the options here and what they need, I definitely feel like they need a quarterback. So I'm going to go ahead and pick C.J. Stroud. So Seattle is up on the block. So go ahead next, Jess.
Well, Seattle would be absolutely ecstatic with how this board fell, and they're rushing that card up there to take Jalen Carter. Shouldn't even be any debate here. 6'3", 300 pounds, as a 92.3 PFF grade. He's just the total package. He had a 89 pass rush grade, 91 run defense grade, a 16.3% pass rush win rate this year, 3 sacks, 5 QB hits, 24 hurries, 3 passes batted down. The dude's, I think he's the number 1 overall player this year, him or Will Anderson, depending on, where you want to line up and what you value the edge versus the interior like that. Both of them are beasts. Those are the 2 blue chips this year, and Seattle is taking Jalen Carter if he's there at 5. They'd be crazy not to.
They would be insane not to.
I mean, he was the main, heart and soul of that Georgia defense this year. Dude's just a beast.
Nope, for sure. All right, next up, Jordan, you have the your hometown team there, Detroit on the clock. They need a little bit of defensive line play, and quarterback is what they're listed as their top needs. So where are you going here with this one?
So I mean, if you watched the first half of this season for the Lions, probably the whole season, I think their defense their secondary was so just not there. So I yes, they do need all these, the defensive line, linebacker, but I definitely think, they got to work on that secondary a little bit. And I'm going to go with corner from Illinois, Devin Witherspoon. Just look at his stats. He didn't let up a touchdown this year. He had a 25.3 passer rating towards him, 3 interceptions, and he literally, from 2020 to now, 2022, he's just gotten better. And I think that's really going to grow in the NFL, and he's just going to get a lot better. And I think he's going to be, come to be one of the best corners in the NFL if he can just
I might have lost word a little bit there, but Devin Witherspoon is his pick there for Detroit.
What he's been doing in college and just continue to be where he's at. And I think it's going to really help that secondary with the young guys they already have out there. So that is my draft pick. I'm giving you the card. Tony.
Well, I must say I'm interested, Witherspoon over Gonzalez. I have Gonzalez as my number 1 corner. Oh, we seem to have lost Tony here. But, Jordan, so I personally would have gone Gonzalez there He's got like a good 20, almost 30 pounds on Witherspoon. He's an inch taller. He's a bit more developed. I mean, Witherspoon had the highest PFF grade of all corners this year, but I don't know. Gonzalez is just much more physical, and we saw how well Sauce Gardner and Tariq Woolen, these kind of bigger, lengthier athletes, both of them freak athletes. Gardner has like some of the best change of direction, hip mobility of any corner in recent memory. But, I personally would have gone Gonzalez there over Witherspoon. I like the physicality more. I mean, Witherspoon, he needs to add at least 15 pounds if he's going to play in the next level.
Well, he could add 15 pounds to the next level.
Still, though. All right, so after Detroit, we have the Raiders. It's hard to say what's going to go on there, being that part of the question for teams like the Raiders, like the Jets a little later. What are they going to do in free agency? Particularly when it comes to the quarterbacks. You got Derek Carr, who was just released from the Raiders. We have Aaron Rodgers probably on the move. We've got Jimmy G out there. Assuming they don't get any of these guys, with how the board fell, I think they're going to go Will Levis. I think, contrary to what Tony was saying, he's got all of the intangibles. He's kind of he's not unathletic. He can move, he can run when necessary. He's got a cannon for an arm. And I would say a decent amount of his step back this year had more to do with the team around him than he himself. I mean, in the past 2 years, he had 23 interceptions. 7 of those were a mixture of passes that were dropped by his receivers or Hail Marys. People have been discussing this, the compilations on YouTube. He still maintained a roughly 65-66% completion percentage this year, had over 8 yards an attempt, and I think teams are going to see, his combination of size and arm talent, and I don't think he makes it out the top 10. Oh, Tony,
your draft pick is up. Just picked it wrong for you.
I think I picked it right. I'm not some huge Will Levis fan.
Just picked it wrong, Tony.
If he's there for the Raiders and they haven't gotten a Jimmy G or an Aaron Rodgers, I think they go Will Levis. He's a bit more polished than Richardson, and those you've got Bryce Young, you got CJ Stroud, you got Will Levis, and you got Anthony Richardson. Those are the 4 guys that are definitely going first round this year. Whether Tony agrees with it or not.
Jess, you're wrong. So, Tony, you're on the clock with the Raiders, and Jess already went over what they needed. So now let's hear your pick.
So if I were the Raiders, I will definitely not be picking Will Levis. That's a ridiculous pick. I would be picking Christian Gonzalez, the cornerback out of Oregon. I think he's the best corner in the draft, actually. I think he just has the most intangibles as far as the cornerback position. I think he's a big, long corner. I think he reminds me a lot of A.J. Terrell. He can cover tight ends and wide receivers. He has elite athleticism. He's got, I think people said he has that dog in him. He just goes out there and gets things done, and that's what I want. I think that's what the Raiders needed on that defense. Now, yeah, they need a quarterback, but honestly, there's no quarterback here in this first round that's going to do anything for him. I think they're going to have to get that in the free agent market.
All right, so I take it then we're going to put Christian Gonzalez here into the mock draft. Alrighty. Well, if that's the case, then Atlanta's on the clock. Atlanta's going to be selecting. I think they would go Anthony Richardson over Will Levis. Big, strong, athletic as all heck. He's the most raw prospect of any of the quarterbacks this year. He has the fewest amount of snaps. I think he's also one of the youngest, but he has all of the physical traits. 6'4", 230. He's got a cannon for an arm. He needs to work on some of his decision making and accuracy. Again, he's a very raw prospect, but I think Atlanta has a bunch of these young pieces, with Drake London, Kyle Pitts, if they ever learn that, you're allowed to throw it to the tight end. And I think they're going to be moving off of because they took a Desmond Ridder last year, but if they have this enticing prospect like an Anthony Richardson, I think they are going to kind of go in there and say, all right, we're going to start Ridder, let Richardson develop, and he's just so much more physically gifted. If they can develop Richardson at all, I think we're going to be looking at a Josh Allen kind of guy. Except I think Richardson's faster than Allen. So they could have one of the biggest freak athletes in the NFL at quarterback if they can develop him right. So I'm going Anthony Richardson to the Falcons.
Anthony Richardson. All right.
That's a big what if they develop him right.
Well, yeah.
It is. All right. So Jordan, you're up next, Carolina. You have a lot available here. Obviously, Carolina needs a lot: quarterback, running back, tight end, edge rusher. What are you thinking here?
This is probably the hardest one for me to figure out. They just need so much, and now with Jess taking Anthony Richardson, that was my pick. So they just need way too much, and I just don't know where to go with that too much.
Will Levis is still on the board.
Yeah, I know. But all right, I'm going to draft Will Levis. I know Jess went over all the stats and everything when Tony was away. But I think
I'm sorry I missed that. So
it's all right. I think Will Levis, just with how he's at arm strength, and he's pretty consistent, and he showed that. And I think, and he's a fighter and a tough guy. So I think the Panthers, with their new head coach, are going to be able to develop him a little better, and hopefully get him to be a quarterback for them for the upcoming future and the next franchise quarterback for him.
All right. Will Levis off the board, number 9. So, yep. Number 10 is Philadelphia. So they need wide receiver, guard, center. Honestly, if it's me, and I kind of looked at this a little bit, I'm going to pick Peter Skoronski here from Northwestern. Reason being is I like his versatility. I like the fact that he can do all 5 positions on the offensive line. And I think he's a very good technician. He can control the line, and I think that's what Philadelphia needs to continue to help that running attack. So that's who I'm picking, Peter Skoronski.
Wow, not Paris Johnson.
Jess, you're up next. Tennessee Titans.
All righty.
I'm not a Paris Johnson fan,
with the Titans. Really? Well, I was debating between Johnson and Johnston for the Titans, and I'm thinking I'm going to go Quentin Johnston. He's my number 1 receiver in this year's class. He's the big body receiver. He's very fast for his size. He's an explosive athlete. He had 60 receptions on 97 targets this year, a bit over 1,000 yards. He averaged 18 yards per catch, 6 touchdowns. He doesn't always utilize his frame the way that he should as a wide receiver. Being 6'4", there aren't many corners who are really going to be able to go toe to toe with that kind of size. But all of this stuff he can work on and develop. He's got all of the tools. He just needs to utilize them right, and I think he will. So I'm going Quentin Johnson to help out the Tennessee Titans.
All right. Good breakdown there. I honestly think he is going to be the best wide receiver in this draft. I just like his ability, his explosiveness. So I think it's a good pick there by Tennessee. Houston up there for their second pick. Obviously, they already took a quarterback first with taking Bryce Young, number 2 pick. So now they need a center and defensive lineman. I guess here is where you could go, he wouldn't be a center, Paris Johnson, so I wouldn't really think he would fit very well. He's probably listed as the best. I'm just not a fan. I think he wasn't consistent enough across his career at Ohio State for me to list him this high. That's just my own personal opinion, though. As I kind of look at what's available, what's left, I probably would, me personally, go with Myles Murphy, the edge rusher out of Clemson. I think he has the most explosiveness and most eruptiveness off the defensive line. I feel like if anybody gets to the quarterback and make something happen, I think out of who's left here, I think it's Myles Murphy, even a little more than Brian Bresee, his teammate in Clemson. So I'm going down a little bit, maybe a little bit of a reach here the first round, but I'm going Myles Murphy here for Houston.
Sure.
All right, Jordan, you're up next, sir, with the Jets, number 13.
Okay. What?
Oh, no, Jess. Is it Jess next? Or did I skip?
No, you skipped me.
I think you skipped.
All right, I skipped. All right, Jordan, 2 Jets, okay?
This is going to be rough.
Difficulties, and I
This is going to be rough. All right. So I just need a quarterback, a tackle, and a linebacker. Woo! And
you could just say they're going to trade that first rounder for Aaron Rodgers and call it a day there.
Could, but it doesn't count like that. I got to pick someone. I'm going with Paris Johnson Jr.
All right, Paris Johnson Jr. It's a good offensive lineman, good tackle, which they need, so good pick there. Even I'm not a big fan, but maybe the Jets will do something with him.
Should have picked.
I messed up. Okay, we have to keep going back to it. All right, Jess, you're up next, the number 14 pick. Then it'll be Jordan. So I'll skip myself this time and get us back on track here. So, Jess, you're up with New England. They obviously need a quarterback. I don't know if they need a quarterback. I feel like
there are some rumors that have come out that if a team were to offer even a halfway decent package, they'd be looking to trade Mac Jones. Not sure how true all that is, but Bailey Zappi performed adequately last year. Neither him nor Mac were all that great. That being said, it's not like they had the best offensive coaching staff there. As a Giants fan, I can attest that Joe Judge is not the best coach. Certainly not the best offensive coach, and being that he was one of their offensive coordinators, that did not bode well for Mac Jones. But I don't think they're going to be going quarterback. Definitely not in the draft. I think they're going to go. If I'm them, I'm going to be looking at Lucas Van Ness here, the edge rusher out of Iowa. He is one of the more unique edge prospects in this draft here this year, standing at 6'5", 270. The guy is quite large. He is an all-around defensive lineman. You can line him up inside, on the edge. He is an incredible bull rusher. Not as much like a speed rush type of guy, but he's going to power through you. He had 271 pass rush snaps this year, recorded 9 sacks, not snacks, although, at 270, I'm sure he...
Yeah, some snacks as well.
He had a 74 pass rush grade, an 81 run defense grade. He had an 18.8% pass rush win rate. You can line him up A gap, B gap, outside the tackle, over the tackle. You can put him anywhere. He's incredibly versatile. And if anybody knows how to get the most out of these kind of defensive prospects, it's Bill Belichick. In my opinion, the greatest defensive coach and the greatest coach overall of all time. So I have Patriots taking Lucas Van Ness.
All right. He is off the board.
Tony?
Good breakdown there. I think that's a good fit. Sorry, you not hear me?
Just I thought we might have lost
you hear me
again for a second. Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, sorry, no. I think it's just a little bit of internet issue. Sorry about that, guys. So number 15 on the board. This is to you, Jordan. I'll make sure not to take this one from you. Green Bay is up. They obviously need a lot with wide receiver, tight end, edge, linebacker. I would say quarterback, but because I don't think they have the right quarterback in place. Aaron Rodgers is leaving. So what are you thinking here, Jordan?
What I'm thinking, I mean, I'm going to go with a wide receiver at this point for them. But, it's such a, there's two kind of close receivers. But I'm going to go with Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Nick
Jigba, a wide receiver from Ohio State. I just think he, we saw him the last couple of years, can really line up in, slot and, wide out and really, stifle defenses, especially the better, defenses we see besides the SEC, but in the Big Ten. So, his ability everywhere on the field is, something you have to look out for. And I think at Green Bay, he can really keep up his, ability, has really good hands. Like I said, can play both sides of the ball, or both not sides of the ball, inside and outside as receiver, and can really bring that speed that the Packers need on offense. So he's going to be my pick for the Green Bay Packers.
All right. Good pick there. All right. That means Washington's on the board here. Obviously, Washington needs quarterback, offensive lineman, and linebacker as their main needs. I look at this as, are there any quarterbacks? As obviously, I think Washington, has had a pretty good team around there. They really need that quarterback. The one that keeps sticking out to me is Tanner McKee. And so I know, obviously, I think it's a little bit of reach. You may be able to get him in the second round. But I would actually take a little bit of reach here and take Tanner McKee because I think he has an opportunity to be a good NFL quarterback. I feel like he was injured at Stanford and really had a terrible team around him. I mean, he not a great offensive line, not great receivers, but he's just that pro-type quarterback that could stand in the pocket and throw it. And I think, he can be a pretty good quarterback in the NFL. And I think he can be a 10, 15-year starter. Maybe not like all-world quarterback, but I think somebody can go in there and be like, a quarterback that Washington needs to build around. So that is who I'm going with. Might be a little bit surprised, but I'm going with Tanner McKee. All right, Jess, back to you here with Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh obviously is needing a tackle, linebacker, corners are their top listed needs, but obviously, anything you feel like they would be able to benefit from here, look for the list, see who do you got coming to Pittsburgh.
So they got their quarterback, Kenny Pickett, last year, and they need to protect said quarterback. So I'm having them go with Broderick Jones. He had an 84 overall pass block grade. He had a 72 run block grade, could use some improvement. He had a 73 zone grade and a 76.2 true pass set pass block grade. He has played all of his snaps from 2020 to 2022 at tackle, and only 25 were at right tackle. The rest were all at left tackle with 930 snaps this year. He didn't allow a single sack this year. He only allowed 2 QB hits and 7 hurries this year as well. So he's going to be able to protect Kenny Pickett. And for Pittsburgh, they're in this kind of weird, their defense is really good, but their offense needs help. And I think, you got your quarterback, then you need your tackles. And I think Broderick Jones is going to be the guy for Pittsburgh.
All right, Broderick Jones is off the board. All right, Jordan, I think it's over to you, sir. For Detroit, they need defensive lineman, linebacker, corner.
So I drafted a corner already, and that I feel like was the biggest thing they needed. Other than that, it's such a hard, picking this late. It's so hard to figure out who you really want and who you think will fit.
Yeah.
And right now, I'm looking at a linebacker, and the 2 top linebackers both have just looking at PFF, they talk about the 2 of the same weaknesses I have, and that's zone coverage. But I think I'm going to go with Trenton Simpson, linebacker from Clemson. Big frame, 6'3", 230. He's really good in the middle of the field. So a lot of the teams nowadays are using their tight ends a lot more. You just look at the Chiefs, and the 49ers have 2 of the best tight ends, and they use them so much. And I think he's going to be that big role in the center of the field, come up and stop the run, stop those tight ends from getting out and being physical. And I think, he's going to get good development in Detroit right now with just the way things are going up and how the defensive coordinators and the offensive coordinators really want to stay and keep the Detroit Lions dream alive. And I think he'll fit that early and get those reps in, early in his career.
Sounds good. Where is he ranked at, Jordan? Because I don't know. I have him on my list. So
he's 59th.
59. Man, you went for a reach here in the first round, sir.
Not really. Okay. He is the second linebacker open there.
So sounds good. I mean, I might have taken him in the second round, but till we get it, we're going to get Trenton Simpson. He's happy, got money he wasn't expecting in this draft. So good for you, Trenton. All right. Next up on the board is me with Tampa Bay. They obviously need a quarterback, tight end, guard. They have a lot of needs. All right. So for me, I would definitely, coming off here, I would take Brian Brzee. I think he's the best defensive lineman. I like him a little bit better than Cansey from Pittsburgh. I think he was just injured a lot. I think he was number 1 rated defensive lineman out of high school. I feel like when he was healthy and was able to show it, he was really disruptive and really, was the leader of that Clemson defensive line. And I think he could be a breakout defensive line player on this draft. So I would definitely take him if I'm Tampa Bay. So pulling him up for Tampa Bay now. All right, Jess, over to you with Seattle. I think they've already, if you look back, Seattle has a couple picks already, if I'm not, or maybe they have it. They took Jalen Carter with their 5th pick, and then they're up now here. So what are you thinking here? It looks like offensive line. Is there a big need here? But is there any other thing you would kind of, maybe not the best need, but the best player? What are you thinking here when you go for this next pick?
I'm thinking that Seattle is going to go with Brian Branch, safety out of Alabama. Jamal Adams, the Seahawks, they lost that trade. And in a couple years, I think they're going to be able to get off of his contract. They're going to have some other guys whose money's up. They're going to need to figure some stuff out on that defense. They already have Tariq Woolen, who was a great success this year in that secondary. And I think they're going to try to have some replication of, that Legion of Boom defense from the early 2010s. Branch had an 86.4 coverage grade. That's really good for a safety, and a 91 run defense grade. All of this is really good, really great. Only 3.3% missed tackle rate. That's elite. A 15.8% forced incompletion rate. Again, elite, particularly for safety. He had 74 tackles, 15 assisted tackles. He only missed 3 tackles this entire year. You can line him up, in the slot. He can line him up over corner, in the box, deep. He's the best safety in this class. He's the most versatile. And Pete Carroll, he certainly knows how to coach up his secondaries. So I'm going to go with Brian Branch.
All right. I think a steal of the draft so far, him going that far. So good pick there by Seattle. Yep. All right. Jordan, I think it's over to you, right, with the Chargers, number 21, the wide receiver.
Yes.
Offensive line, defensive line, corner.
Yeah. Going down, we're so far, already in the 21st, but it's like you see the top 10 change, then the top, 20 after that. It's just, you can see the tier difference in the players in the team. So, but I think the Chargers definitely need to get some more offensive firepower to, go behind some of their players. And I think Justin Herbert needs someone else he can, get the ball to and have more time and get everything situated. And I think the best pick right now for that at Jordan Addison from USC, wide receiver. I just think has this, good speed, can really run routes really well. And I think it'll he's really good at that number 2 receiver, which what the Chargers need is that number 2 receiver right now. And I think Jordan Addison will fill that spot and really elevate and help the Chargers offense get past I think they're kind of stuck at a hump right now. And I think Jordan Addison can help get them over that hump with, just his route running and being that good enough player to come in and, be that number 2 receiver for him. So Jordan Addison.
All right. Jordan Addison, good player. I think it's a good fit for him here on the West Coast. He doesn't have to travel very far. So good pick up there for the Chargers. Up next here with Baltimore on the clock. Obviously needs some edge rusher, corner, and wide receiver. I'm kind of going back and forth. Part of me wanted to take Zay Flowers. I feel like he is potentially the best wide receiver in this draft. Especially this time. I just really loved his game with the amount of players he had around him in college. But I also, I liked Andre Carter from Army, the edge player there. I think they both have some good opportunities, could both make an impact. But I just decided to go ahead and go with Zay Flowers. I feel like he could be that number 1, number 2 wide receiver for Baltimore. He can really be explosive and can really, make some game-breaking, plays on the offensive side, which I think Baltimore is needed from the receiver level. So I'm going to go ahead and take Zay Flowers here with the number 22 pick. All right, Jess, you're up next with Minnesota. Obviously, they need some defensive help here from the defensive side on the D-line and in the corner section and safety. So what you got here for Minnesota?
For Minnesota, I am going with Joey Porter Jr. The Vikings had the second worst pass defense in the entire NFL last year, giving up 4,515 yards and 23 touchdowns through the air. They gave up an average of 7.3 yards per attempt and allowed quarterbacks to complete about 66% of passes. So they need help in the secondary, where part of their issue was they were very old. They were not able to play like this deep zone coverage that they really wanted to. They just didn't have the personnel. And Joey Porter, 6'2", 200 pounds, He's a great athlete with great hands. He only allowed 143 total yards this year, only allowed 15 receptions on 30 targets. That's very low target rate for a corner. He needs some work on his recovery speed, but he's got the size that if he's able to develop a little bit more in his press technique, then that's not going to be nearly as much of a problem. He's a good tackler. He's got all of these great aspects to him. He might not be the mega athlete that some others in this draft are, but I think he has a case to be the best press corner in this upcoming draft.
All right, Joey Porter Jr. off the board. Eventually, there it goes. All right, coming up next is Jacksonville. So Jacksonville has some offensive line and defensive back needs. So Jordan, where are you heading with your Jacksonville pick?
I'm probably going to make a weird pick, and you're going to be like, what the heck? But I definitely think can easily get – what? You can easily get, better offensive line later. And I think it's, you want to get that defense, buckled up. And I think that's, was one of their issues, especially early in games, is their defense wasn't 100%. So I am going to go with Cam Smith, cornerback from South Carolina. He is way down there, Tony. I don't think you're going to find him. He's 69th. But he has really good ball speed or balls. What, man? Hey, can I, just look at, look, he has some really good ball skill. He breaks up passes or picks them off. He definitely finds that football. Really good speed. And the biggest what if right now for him is, tackling, but that can be changed. I think he's just really gets off the jumps, gets off too fast for tackling. But that's really the biggest what if, biggest scary thing. And I think he can really excel and bring that to a honing point. I think the speed really helps him and will really help him cover those, small slot receivers that have that speed. And I think he'll be a good fit for Jacksonville and their defense.
No, I actually like the pick. I like Cam Smith. He was a really good player for South Carolina. Did some damage, get some really good SEC teams that got him ready. I do think he'll need a little bit of development, but I think next couple of years he could really develop into one of the more special corners in the league. So no, I think it's a good pick. It's a good one there. All right, Giants are on the board next. They have a lot of needs on the offensive side with wide receiver, tight end, linebacker, center. Personally, they have a need for tight end, I think, and they have a need for wide receiver. You got to go with the best pass catcher in this draft, and that's Michael Mayer. Double, triple covered, doesn't matter. The greatest tight end of our lifetime, Jess. You got to go ahead and pick.
I certainly won't hate it.
But I hate the fact that Dalton Kincaid is sitting up here above him. That's just ridiculous to me, but whatever. We're going to go ahead and
updated their rankings recently. They had Michael Mayer as actually, I think, originally like a top 15 prospect, and then the update, they dropped him all the way down to 28th.
Yeah, it must have been all those games that happened last
they're wrong.
Couple months. I'll pick Michael Mayer here. New York, I think it's a good pick. Mm-hmm. I think he could be good there. He can really open up that offense a bit just so he can demand double coverage and help other wide receivers on the team. So I'm going to take Michael Mayer here. So, all right, on the board, Cowboys need wide receivers, defensive line, linebacker,
probably quarterback too.
And they need a new owner, but we don't have that on the list. So, what do you got? Who are you picking?
For my hated Dallas Cowboys.
Who you want to give him the worst player on the board? You want to just give that to him?
Yeah, who does PFF have ranked last? Let's go with.
It's a punter from Rutgers.
Abanikanda, halfback or running back out of Pittsburgh. No, they were a solid. They have a lot of elite personnel. But in area, particularly on defense, you got Micah, you got all of these, guys. But what they really needed was to be able to slow down the run game. And they gave up about 2,200 yards on the ground. They need to be able to take away that aspect of an offense. So I have them going Siaki Ika out of Baylor, defensive tackle. 6'4", about 360. He was just such a big guy. He's going to be very good at slowing down the run game. He had about a 75, 76 pass rush grade, about a 70 run defense grade. He had 3 QB hits, 15 hurries, 2 batted passes this year. He's a very solid interior defensive lineman, and it'll really put some size on that defensive line. And he might not be the greatest at purely getting to the quarterback, but he's going to eat up space on that interior. And then you can just let Micah Parsons do his thing on the edge, as well as DeMarcus Lawrence.
All right, good pick. I like his play in Baylor, and I think he'll fit in naturally there, Dallas. Yeah, exactly. Don't have to move. All right, Jordan. Next up, Buffalo. So, obviously, have some offensive line, defensive back needs. Who you got here?
This one, again, it's getting so late in the draft. It's so hard to figure out someone that can definitely bring that firepower. But I'm going to have to go with let me take a look. Jordan Schultz out of no, I'm kidding.
Out of Detroit, Michigan.
Detroit, Michigan. Let's go. I'm going to have to go with Osiris Terrence. Osiris Torrance. Yep. I think that's all right. Calm down. All right. I think that's going to be the best. I think Josh Allen needs that upfront offensive line that he can sit behind a little bit more. I think we saw that late in the season where he just was doing so much because of his offensive line wasn't really getting, blocking for him as well as they needed him. I think he can, Osiris can come in and, fill that hole they need because I think, the Bills' offensive line has really struggled and really held them down. So that is my pick from Florida.
All right. Good pick there. Next up was me with the Bengals at number 28. They obviously need some tackle. They need a defensive lineman, corner. Can't see there from Pittsburgh is sitting there, top 15 rated draft pick. He's sitting here at number 28. The Bengals would be ecstatic if he's still sitting there at number 28, and they would definitely jump on him and take him here at his pick. So that is who I am taking. He was a disruptive player at a very good defensive program there in Pittsburgh, and I think he'll be able to jump in and I think start day one there for the Bengals. Thanks for you, Jess. You got our number 29. I think the Saints, they need a quarterback, defensive line, and a corner. So who you got here with them taking?
So the Saints defense is very old. They are going to need to get some youth in there. Demario Davis and Cameron Jordan, Chris Harris Jr., they're all over 33. That's not even to mention, on offense, the Andy Dalton, 35, although I don't think he's going to be there all that much longer. Taysom Hill, 32. They've got some age there, so I'm thinking of injecting some youth into that defense. And if I'm the Saints, I'm going with Nolan Smith out of Georgia.
So I was going to take next.
75 pass rush grade and a very good 82.5 run defense grade, a 77 true pass rush grade, 25% pass rush win rate, a 15% run stop rate. This year, his season did end early due to injury, but in his games played, he had 2 sacks, 5 QB hits, 12 hurries. He is a very good athlete. He's going to keep 6'3", 235, so he's going to be able to set the edge relatively well. Could stand to put on a little weight if he's going to be playing as a pure edge rusher, but if they want to kind of make him a linebacker pass rush hybrid, I think that would work well for him. He's very fast. He's got great bend and dip, and I think New Orleans, with how the board fell here, they just need to take best player available, and for me, that's Nolan Smith.
All right, good pickup there. So it's up to me next with Philadelphia. They already took a offensive lineman in the first pick of this, their first pick in this draft. So their second pick here in the first round. I'm struggling. The two I narrowed down to as far as wide receivers goes with Josh Downs and Jalen Hyatt. I think both are have their own strengths. Where I think Josh Downs, he's a little undersized, but he is really, I would say, one of those pass. He can throw anything in his area, he was going to be able to catch it. Where I think Jalen Hyatt is more of that kind of Will Fuller type, and that can stretch the field and like blow by anybody. And I think that's what Philadelphia needs a little more than anything right now. Is another one of those guys that can just run deep for a really deep pass catching threat. So I'm going to go with Jalen Hyatt here out of Tennessee. Maybe a little bit of a stretch here, but I like him here in the first round. And that leaves you, Jordan, with your beloved Kansas City, who I believe already had a pick earlier. Am I crazy? No, they did not.
You're crazy.
You're crazy.
I'm crazy.
It definitely sucks to hear you pick Jalen Hyatt.
I was thinking the exact same thing. Like, yo,
It hurt my soul. Because that's, like you even said it, he can stretch the field, and I think right now that's something the Chiefs could use and need. That's the thing. I'm going to go with Josh Downs, wide receiver from North Carolina. I definitely think, like you already said, he's kind of, undersized, but he is really a good slot, and I think that's what the Chiefs kind of need is that slot receiver, just someone with speed that can get around that edge with a lot of things. And, it's really, really good footwork. Watching some of him playing, he can get off the ball, get you out of the way, with just his feet. Doesn't even need his hands. So Josh Downs is who I'm picking, and I think he'll really grow and be a good spot with the Chiefs.
Yep. All right. So Josh Downs wrapped up this draft with a couple good wide receivers there at the end. I think that's a good little exercise. And, the way the stress that Jordan was feeling there, I think is all the stress that the GMs feel when they're trying their numbers up and they have to make a call there. But
you good, Tony?
Who knows if we're right? There's probably going to be a bunch of trades that's going to kind of mess up the draft that we currently just did. Did you not hear me?
We did not.
No. You kind of cut out there for a second.
All right. Well, yeah, technical difficulties. So sorry about that, guys. We'll get it cleaned up by next week. But, I think it was overall a good draft. I think we'll see how right we are when it comes to the actual NFL draft. And we'll see you guys next week. Follow us in the Flat on Twitter and In the Flat Podcast on our website.
At least with